Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin. This is Life, Liberty, and Levin, and we have two great guests. Katie Pavlich, how are you?
Nice to see you, Mark. Thank you so much.
Candace Owens, how are you?
Very good to see you.
Two of the great, young, smart, intellectual conservatives who I wanted to have on the program. Now, Katie Pavlich, in 2010, you earned your Bachelor of Arts degree in broadcast journalism from the University of Arizona. After completing your degree, in 2010, you moved to Washington, D.C. You became news editor for townhall.com, contributing editor, Town Hall magazine, Fox News Channel contributor, and now an alternate co-host for The Five. And you're ubiquitous, as are you, Candace. Candace, you're known for your commentary. You are the director of urban engagement at the conservative advocacy group Turning Point USA. You were pursuing an undergraduate degree in journalism at the University of Rhode Island. You left school. You said, that's enough. You launched socialautopsy.com in 2016, a website where you were exposing bullies and so forth. Now, this is very interesting to me. You really come from different backgrounds. You're both conservatives. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct.
And you came at it from a completely different direction. This is something I think about all the time, how to appeal to people, how do we reach out to people from different communities, people from different backgrounds, because I personally think conservatism is the glue that holds society together. Why are you a conservative?
Well, as Margaret Thatcher used to say, the facts of life are conservative, and I think that's really just part of who I am. I grew up in a conservative household. My parents were small business owners, so it really just was kind of part of who we were. They never sat us down and said, this is what the left believes, this is what the right believes, Republicans, Democrats. It was just more of a conversation piece. And I wrote a letter to Bill Clinton when I was 6 years old about taxes and how it was unfair that he was taking our money and we didn't get to spend his money. And he wrote me back with, a generic argument about paying fair shares and all that kind of thing. So that's when it really started. But, I'm a daughter of the American Revolution. My grandpa fought in World War II. I have lots of family members who were in the military. And it really just was part of growing up for me. I didn't realize until high school that the man wearing a cowboy hat on the poster in our garage was actually Ronald Reagan. And so my parents it was how we were. I grew up on 5 acres of land in Flagstaff, Arizona, and we really just lived a conservative lifestyle, personal responsibility, being self-sufficient, being responsible for our own actions, our own future and pursuits. So that's why I am a conservative. It really just is part of who I am.
Candace, you didn't grow up that way.
I did not.
You become a fairly recent conservative.
That is true.
How did you reach that point?
Well, I like to say now that the reason I'm conservative is because I used to be a liberal, and I learned a lot. Obviously, growing up in a black household, there's a lot of emphasis placed on black people today being liberals, being Democrats. It's pretty much programmed into us via the public school system that is the only option for us because Republicans, of course, are racist and they want to harm the black community. And I had a different experience in life, realizing that everything in my life seemed to be going wrong. I was blaming the world for everything that was going wrong. There was no personal responsibility because in a lot of these liberal movements, you're essentially taught that there's always someone else that you can blame. And you're pointing the finger at everybody else. You're not looking internally to fix things, and you'll find that things will continue to go wrong. So during the 2016 election cycle, I was watching our wonderful president take a run for the White House, and the conversation was very strange. The rhetoric that the media was using was extremely aggressive. They were trying to convince me that he was a racist, that he was a sexist, that he was a misogynist, at one point that he was incestuous, right? They started that horrible story about Ivanka Trump, and at one point that he was a rapist. And I said, this is very strange. I grew up in a household listening to hip hop music. Trump was glorified in a lot of those music, and a lot of those songs. And all of a sudden they wanted me to believe that he was a racist. So I had to ask myself in that moment, is it plausible that racism is being used as a theme to turn black people into single issue voters? And the answer to that question is, of course, yes.
What does conservatism mean to you?
Conservatism to me is, limited government, liberty, and sticking to the Constitution, and realizing that government is not the solution to almost anything, that your community, your family is a solution to everything. Going back to the beginning of the country, we've rejected this communal style of living, going back to the Pilgrims coming here. Being conservative is really just about, making your own decisions, deciding on your own future, and being responsible when you fail, learning from those failures and being able to move on and be successful in your own right, not having to depend on other people to make your success for you. Obviously, you go through life and you have, partnerships and bosses who promote you and give you opportunity, but it's really up to you to take those opportunities and pursue them in a way that makes you successful.
And what does conservatism mean to you?
Well, if you look at the inverse, I think liberalism to me means bondage, and conservatism means freedom. The freedom to choose, the freedom to have responsibility to go after things in life. It's the founding principles of this country, that any person could come to this country with the clothing on their back and make something of themselves. I learned conservatism through my grandfather. I didn't know that was the name. I didn't know these were conservative principles. Starting his life on a sharecropping farm, working tremendously hard, 5 years old, picking cotton and laying tobacco out to dry on a farm. And today he now owns that farm. That was the American dream. And we lost that. We gave that up as government got bigger and the individual got smaller.
And this is all quite important from a philosophical perspective. You just related it to your own family. Is conservatism about individualism?
Absolutely.
Is conservatism about a circle of liberty that surrounds each individual that government must never penetrate? Is this an appealing idea among young people today in college campuses today? When I was a young guy, a little while ago, and I would go college campus, I have to say, I was fighting. I was in the minority all the time. Mm-hmm. Because the professors weren't any different. They were collectivists, they were tenured, some of them were Marxists, and it all sounds so cool. And we had to fight this. And I thought the people who fought it with me were actually the smarter ones. Is that what's going on today, or is it worse in our colleges today?
Well, I know that parents get really nervous about sending their kids to college because they're concerned about the indoctrination, but for me, going to a liberal university and having that combative role with professors both in political science department and the journalism department really solidified my principles as a conservative and why I am the way I am. And I was challenged every day and had to defend myself and come up with another side of the argument that was valid. And when it comes to other students, I was always leading the charge to try and bring conservative speakers and fighting the administration because they were infringing on our free speech rights by charging us these ridiculous security fees. And so I would say, the campus environment maybe hasn't changed. It is pretty bad. I speak on college campuses a couple times a semester, and there is no room for any kind of thought outside of the Marxism, outside of the socialism. But what I've learned is that the students may buy into that, but when you actually ask them what socialism means, they can't define it. And when you start pointing things out like, each and every one of you are wearing a different pair of shoes, and each and every one of you have a different style backpack or a different style iPod or a different phone case. And it seems really simple, but the fact is that they are individuals on every single level of their life. And socialism and communism and Marxism don't allow them to do that. But you can never blame students especially for something they've never been told. And so I feel like it's my obligation to go to these college campuses and to simply present the other side of an argument, of an idea that they're not getting inside of their classrooms. And oftentimes, I always ask people who disagree with me to come. I tell whatever group is hosting me, invite the college Democrats, invite the college socialists, invite people to come and listen, invite your professors who have been saying these horrible things about my speech already, even though they've never met me or know who I am or even know what I'm going to talk about. And they may come in disagreeing with me and they may leave disagreeing with me, but the rewarding thing is when students come up to me afterwards and say, look, I walked in here disagreeing with you, I still disagree with you, but at least I know where you're coming from. And even better is when they come and say, I totally disagreed with you, but now I agree with you, and I'm going to go and tell 10 of my friends exactly what I learned here tonight.
And you were a journalism major.
I was, yes.
You took journalism courses. That was your major.
Correct.
Was it hard left? Were they indoctrinating people? Is that why journalists in this country are so, almost to a person, yes. There's few exceptions, speak, sound, make the same noises on TV and radio?
That's correct. It definitely is indoctrination. And I will say this, it's much worse today than when I was in school, and we're talking about just a difference of 5 years. What I have observed on college campuses this year.
And you're on college campuses also?
Yeah, we do college campus tours. It's terrifying. It's actually terrifying. There's this idea that it's virtuous. You can't speak as a conservative on campus without being boycotted, without being protested, without students lining up and playing music loudly so that they can drown out the sound of your voices. Now, we're not speaking about anything controversial at Turning Point USA. We believe in free markets and capitalism, the founding principles of this country, and the students hate that. And they don't hate that, as Katie mentioned, they don't hate that because they formed these ideas. They hate that because they have been indoctrinated to hate that. So I say that college campuses are literal liberal indoctrination camps. And that is why I understood, especially in terms of me wanting to wake up Black America, which is my highest priority, that was an extremely important vertical to hit. It is how I ended up as a liberal. It is how I ended up thinking that perhaps socialist principles could save the world. The most important battle that we are facing in this country today, and what conservatives did wrong, was handing over the school system to the left, allowing them to take that over. And it is the most important battle that we are fighting today.
And this is a great point. I mean, it essentially is a monopoly, an ideological monopoly. And
Right.
yet this is where we're told academic freedom and free speech. At least, again, when I was going to colleges, even though I was the minority, from a philosophical perspective, they would hear you out. Mm-hmm. We had a few conservative professors. There's less and less of that. So we have this ideological monopoly, let's call it that, on our college campuses, even though there's thousands of them. There's a few exceptions, like Hillsdale College and Grove City and a few others. But they're the exceptions. What do we do about it?
Well, I would say we need more conservative professors, but that is not the easiest feat in the world.
Well, let me just point, because the faculty, it's incestuous. The deans, the faculty,
Correct.
they
Right.
pick from their own schools, they pick people who have their own ideology. I mean, I've been looking into this myself. How do we break the back of this monopoly?
Well, I think that we have to first look at the fact that taxpayers are funding these government institutions. So we call them public schools. They're really government institutions, especially when it comes to universities. They're constantly going to their state legislatures and asking for more money for less productive work and less results. The universities on the public level, the government level, are not responsible for anything that they put out. So they don't care if you go for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, as long as you're paying them money. They don't care if you get a degree in sociology. They actually probably prefer that. But there's no results. They're not trying to get people a job. So how do we change that? First, you talk to your state legislatures about how the universities are taking all of your tax money and they're not actually producing any real world results of students who can then go get real jobs instead of being $100,000 in debt over a women's studies
So pull
degree.
back the funding?
Pull back some of the funding, look at what they're spending their money on. When I was in college, I would go on a radio show every single Thursday and expose what was happening inside the universities, inside my classroom, what my professors were saying inside the classroom, what they were spending money on. I remember they built a fake border wall across campus, and they were preventing students. Yeah, they were preventing students from getting to class. And those are the things that student fees are going towards. That's what parents are paying for. That's what taxpayers are footing the bill for. And so exposing that from the inside out is important because alumni can look at it and say, I'm no longer going to give my money to these universities. I'm going to give them to conservative organizations instead that are actually making a difference on campus. Suing universities is key too because they think that they're not going to be held accountable by anybody. But when they're infringing on the rights of students, organizations like FIRE have sued on behalf of students. ADF has also sued to say, look, you think you can bully students out of their First Amendment rights by bringing conservative speakers here to simply offer a different point of view? We're not going to put up with that anymore. Their constitutional rights apply on campus and off campus.
When we come back, I want to know what you think too, what we should do about this ideological monopoly on our college campuses. I think these are great ideas, great things that are going on, but I think it is the biggest problem we face when it comes to young people in this country. Don't forget, folks, to join us almost every weeknight on Levin TV. Go to crtv.com/mark, crtv.com/mark, and join us. Or give us a call at 844-LEVIN-TV, 844-LEVIN-TV. And by the way, notice how patriotic our guests are. Red, white, blue, and they didn't plan it.
We did not plan it.